An embattled Prime Minister who he hadn't heard from for some time, taking a back seat, allowing the protesters to have their say, trying to show everyone within Thailand, her voters and the anti-government protesters, that they have their right to speak up, and giving them the floor for some time. And we've seen their numbers actually diminish since Monday, so a lot of political analysts saying that was a wise thing for her to do, to sit back and allow this to slowly diminish as the week continues. But Natalie, today, when we went to speak to her, a lot of tough questioning of her position as to how long she can maintain this position of being calm and conciliatory and saying that she's going to push ahead with an election that the anti-government protesters do not want. I asked her whether it was time for her to stand down from her position for the good of the country, if nothing else. And she replied to me that she is constitutionally bound to stay in her position because she's heading a caretaker government right now. And let's wait and see. Let's allow the election and the voters to decide. She was pushed again later in the press conference on exactly this line as to whether the entire Shinawatra family should just distance itself from politics. They are dividing the nation. Previously, her brother Thaksin Shinawatra, who was ousted in a coup in 2006 amid corruption charges, and herself as well, now becoming an unpopular prime minister. Shouldn't they just remove themselves from politics? To which she replied that her family is the victim. And she also replied that they had garnered 15 million votes in the last election. They came into government through an election, and if people want to remove her, it will have to be through an election. Natalie?
And well, so she said the things that indicate that she plans to do everything she can to stay in power and to stand up against the opposition. But how did she sound? Did she sound like she's inside remaining strong through this?
No, Natalie, that's a very interesting question, because while I was watching her throughout this press conference, she's the youngest of the Shinawatra family. This was almost kind of thrust upon her. She was obviously had her mantra that she was told to stick to about let the people decide in the election. Very calm, very composed, but every now and again she got a question that she didn't quite, know how to answer. She giggled a little bit, and she referred. By the way, she was not on her own. She was flanked on both sides, Natalie, by cabinet ministers and advisors, and she was often referring to them, asking them, can you reply to this one? Can you answer? Can you help me out? So that was very interesting to see. Natalie, just one thing that I want to bring to your attention as well, just getting some information in now that there has been a shooting incident of some kind outside a government building. Trying to get more details on that. What the National Security Chief had told us earlier is that he believed that it was some aerial firing, apparently clashes between residents in the area and anti-government protesters. So it seems perhaps like the local residents have had enough of their presence. How will that impact Thailand in the long run? I'm joined now by Martin Craigs. He's from the Pacific Asia Travel Association. Martin, thanks for joining us on CNN. We're seeing this almost cyclical political turmoil, whether it be the pro-government supporters coming out on the streets or anti-government supporters. Just how much of this can Thailand take? What impact is it going to have long-term on tourism?
As I said on a recent interview with your colleagues in London, of course this is not good news, but on the other hand, you have to put it in perspective. We're standing here in a beautiful garden 500 meters from one of the main protests. I've just come from my office, and it is like a carnival atmosphere. It's not threatening, but we know there have been fatalities, and we know late at night some extremists have resorted to very unfortunate tactics. But to give your viewers the impression that there's a big pervading threat throughout the whole of this enormous city is entirely unbalanced and unreasonable, and I'm not suggesting you are. The drop-off that you just mentioned, 13,000 to 3,000, is not altogether surprising.
What about dips in figures of people arriving at the airport, and particularly over November and December?
Exactly. We've looked at the numbers. We've talked to TAT, to TG, the national airline, and AOT, the airport. What's interesting is, in November, tourist arrivals in total were up 8% year on year. In December, remember this has been going on for nearly 3 months, these protests. In December, they were only up 2%. So that's not a good trend line, 8% growth to only 2% growth. But still, it's growth even throughout this period. However, we have to be realistic that the bookings going into Easter and beyond are a worry. Our members, we have over 800 members, by the way, throughout Asia Pacific, so we've got very good and regular feedback. Our members are alarmed at how the longer-term bookings are dropping off.
And is that concern going to translate in associations like yours and other business leaders approaching the government and saying, look, enough's enough, you've got to do something about it because it's hitting us in the pockets and it's going to damage Thailand's economy?
It is not only travel and tourism that, of course, is being affected by this. And with due respect, it's not our job to tell any government how to do their business. I think they're all quite clear in their own minds that the sooner a peaceful and amicable resolution can be found, the better. But it is a complex problem.